Uh, Welcome to tonight's meeting. May I have the roll call, please?
Mr. Applebaum? Mrs. Applebaum?
Here.
Mrs. Hopper?
Here.
Mr. Jacob?
Here.
Mrs. Mogerman?
Here.
Dr. Fiorentino?
Here.
Mrs. Feldman?
Here. Thank you. Call for closed session. Tonight there is none. Can I ask everyone to please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag. Thank you. We have a very important special recognition tonight. I'd like to call on Mr. Ron Ramspot to come on down and tell us about it.
Good evening, President Feldman, members of the board, Dr. Marty, Ms. Stover. I am here tonight to do a special recognition. The Parkway Health and Physical Education programs have long been committed to partnering with local health agencies and organizations that help promote healthy, active students. Through most of its 35-year history, the Parkway Health and Physical Education programs have partnered with the American Heart Association in helping raise awareness of heart disease, the #1 killer of the United States, and raise funds to aid in heart disease research through the Jump Rope and Hoops for Heart programs. Not only do our students have an opportunity to make an impact on the future health of our nation, but students also develop essential health skills such as communication and advocacy skills through its community service project. I might also add that they are developing fitness skills and burning a few calories along the way. I would like to welcome and introduce to you Julie Hederman, Senior Youth Marketing Director of the Midwest affiliate of the American Heart Association, who is here this evening to recognize the Parkway School District for its long-standing and outstanding partnership. Julie?
Thank you so much. Thank you especially to Ron. As Ron mentioned, I'm with the American Heart Association, and I work with all of the school districts in St. Louis area, and I have for the past 7 years. And I think you all are probably aware of what a special guy that you have with Ron Ramspot. He is really incredible. So, Ron, thank you for your past support. He is such a champion for not just our cause, but so many other missions on health and wellness. And as he mentioned, I work with all of the school districts. Parkway School District has really set themselves above in so many ways. And so just briefly, I wanted to let you know a little bit more about our partnership with your schools. First of all, as he mentioned, that heart disease is the #1 killer of all Americans. It's more than all the cancers combined. And we're also the Stroke Association. And so the symptoms a lot of times are really hidden, especially for women. And in the packet that I gave you tonight, there's my business card in there. But on the back, it really has warning signs of heart attack and stroke. And if you'll even carry that in your purse or wallet, it's just a really good indicator. In fact, my daughter's father-in-law just 2 nights ago had a massive heart attack, but they were able to get him to the hospital and shocked his heart back twice, and he's younger than I am. So it's really important that not just the students are learning about heart disease, but certainly the staff and their families as well. Really our mission in the schools and throughout the community is to build healthier lives, free of cardiovascular disease and stroke. And the building is really a big part of what we do in the schools. And really with Ron's help and all of the PE teachers and all of the nurses through Parkway, I've had a really good connection with Lisa Harnacker and through all of the nurses too. They really spread that mission of wellness. Some of the items that the schools receive from participating with our programs, this is a brand new packet that really helps educate the students about keeping a healthy lifestyle. And so our goal is really to get these kiddos when they're young to really make simpler, healthier choices. Things like staying away, obviously, from tobacco, adding more fruits and vegetables throughout the day, getting more physical activity, and that's really a goal for everyone. And even if you can't do 60 minutes a day. If you can do 30 minutes at one point and another 15 and another 15 is better than nothing. But the information that we provide to the schools that participate in our programs, we change those every year, and this component even goes down to the families. Ron mentioned that the schools have participated, and I also put in your packet kind of the breakdown of all of your schools and their level of participation. The jump rope and Hoops for Heart, it's been around a long time. In fact, some of you might have participated even when you were in school. The Hoops for Heart is basketball, and that is typically more for the middle schools, but something that the nurses have helped add in the past couple years is a Wear Red Day. And Parkway was one of the first districts, along with Hazelwood District, to have like an all-district Wear Red Day. So I wanted to commend you for that. These shirts that will be available this year, these are Wear Red shirts. And again, the awareness of the donations are a $10 donation, but it really goes back all the way when the kids are all wearing red on the first Friday of February, which is February 6th this year. So I'll be working with your nursing staff to get that word out. But it's so crucial when it factors down, especially then to the moms, when they're asking their child, now why are you wearing red today? It's not Valentine's Day. It's like hopefully that message then even connects back to the families. Along with the handouts that I put in your folder there are many, many programs that we partner with, but as I mentioned, some with the donations that have been raised in the past 35 years. Ron and I were talking about how long the Parkway schools have participated. Our records only go back as far as computers, so obviously the past 25-ish years. Some of your schools have participated for years and years, just incredible amounts of donations. And those amounts stay here in the St. Louis area. We're very fortunate to have great research facilities here. So you never know. Those connections of those dollars and cents have done lots of astronomical things for the past many, many years. I did want to highlight some just outstanding superstars that you guys have in Parkway. In addition to Ron, there is, I don't know if I put the listing of the top St. Louis schools, but in the St. Louis area, and I work, as I mentioned, with all of the school districts, some of the 5 of the Parkway schools that are in the top 15 schools in St. Louis are Ross Elementary, Belle Reve, Oak Brook, and Shenandoah Valley. But one of the schools that I did not mention yet not only is in the top 15 for St. Louis area, they are also in the top 10 for Missouri. So I'd like to have Randy and Bill from Mason Ridge to come up here, please. They were astronomical this year in many, many ways. They challenged the students at Mason Ridge and the staff to a very high goal. And they said, you know, if we reach over $10,000, we will be able to dress up like whatever. Did you tell them what it would be at that point? We did. Yeah, it was kind of their own little duck dynasty at Mason Ridge. And they dressed up like a duck. Randy's mother-in-law even made an incredible costume, and I passed a picture along to Kathy Kelly so she can get that out to you all. And the bill was essentially like the duck commander. So in their efforts of enthusiasm and getting the kids so excited, they were able to raise almost $11,000 in donations. So thank you guys so much. This is their plaque for St. Louis. They'll get their Missouri plaque because they were number 7 in the state of Missouri for jump and hoops donations. So just amazing. And then I wanted to present Ron, and then you all can put this in the district office. This is really kind of the collective total for all of the efforts of Parkway, over $66,000 in donations. So you all are just incredible. So thank you very much. Appreciate it. Yes. So you will see me in and out of your schools. That's pretty much what I do all day long. I run into people and they're like, wait a minute, we just saw you at Shenandoah Valley. I'm like, yes, that's what I do. So thank you again for all of your efforts, and I'll follow up with you, Dr. Marty, just to kind of pass along information. But again, thank you for the opportunity. Thanks.
For all of your efforts.
Thanks.
Additions, corrections, and modifications to the agenda. Item 11.02, update to personnel items. We removed line 98. Items 11.04 and 11.05 have been revised due to a change in financials. Revenues increased and expenses decreased. Well, that's always good news. 7.0, citizen statements. We have one this evening, a very special citizen in our eyes. I'd like to call down Mr. Bruce Major, former board president and great board member and a friend to this district. And you know the drill.
Yes, Madam President. Bruce Major, 717 Juniper Glen Court, Baldwin, Missouri, 63021. Madam President, Mr. Vice President, Dr. Marty, Ms. Stover, it is an honor to be here tonight, and I am making a statement on behalf of the Citizens for the Parkway community, which is the advocacy group which is starting up the campaign to support Prop S, which is on the November 4 ballot. So I am absolutely giddy to be number one on this side of the podium and thrilled to be involved with this effort. And I just want to let you know we're working hard. I am learning at the knee of Ed Zumwinkle, the guru of these campaigns, and thoroughly enjoying the experience. Jennifer is skeptical that I ever left the board, so if you're watching, honey, this side, I'm not sitting down. So anyway, the campaign, if you don't know the details, you'll find out soon enough, and that goes to everybody in the room. Even you guys are going to hear more than you want to about this. But I couldn't pass up the opportunity to make a public statement in support of Prop S. And for all the administrators, I'm sure your checks are in the mail, so thank you very much. Thank you, Madam President.
I'd like to recognize we have some scouts over here. Can you guys stand up, tell us your names and where you go to school and what you're doing here? Right on the left down here. Out so we can hear. And what are you guys doing here tonight? I suspect you might have had something more fun to do in your time with us.
We are here working for the primary 3A and B for the communication.
Now we're going to make you repeat it, so for the record.
We are here working for the requirements 3A and B for the communication in the community.
All right. And does that entail just attending our meeting, or do you have to do any work, any written work to support that?
Attending and writing down a couple notes.
Okay, great. Well, welcome, and thanks for coming, and we hope you enjoy our meeting.
Thank you.
Let's see, we're at 8.0, approval of agenda, August 27th, 2014. May I have a motion and a second to approve the agenda for the regular meeting of the Board of Education scheduled for Wednesday, August 27th, 2014?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 9.0, resolutions. There are none tonight. 10.0, communications, the calendar of meetings. The next regular meeting of the Board of Education is scheduled for Wednesday, September 10th, 2014 at Central Middle School with an anticipated closed session at 6:00 p.m. 10.02, Board Liaison Reports. I know who wants to go first.
I'll go first.
Okay.
I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but as a new school board member, we're required to go through training. And we have 16 hours of training as a new school board member that we have to go through. 8 hours is online training, and the other 8 hours is in-person training. So this is it's a mandation that is by the state of Missouri, and the Missouri School Board Association conducts the training, and I'm pleased to report I have completed my training. I'm now a certified board member, and I just want to thank everyone for their support so far for me being on the school board and providing me with the guidance and the direction that I've received so far. So thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for doing that in a hurry, because you'll be a better board member
Thank you.
for having done.
It was well worth it.
You want to go next?
Sure. We've had a very busy 2 weeks or since the last board meeting, everything from riding school buses. I tell you, Miss Janice runs a tight ship. And we were told that she was given the most difficult route in Parkway. You wouldn't know it. I mean, it was run very nicely, and that was very enjoyable. Also attended the beginning of PTO leadership, and I think the thing that I enjoyed the most, there were several other events too, but going to Spark, our experiential learning for their, wasn't their open house, but it was just one of the days when the kids were coming there on a Friday to work with the teacher, and some of they're actually trying to put their pitch together on how to raise money and do things for the project that they're working on. So it was just nice to see them. They're really excited, and they had a lot of questions for us, and Tom Applebaum was there too. It was really quite fun. I do have one final thing I'd like to just, there was a payday note that I don't think any of you saw, and I just wanted to read it to you because I thought you would enjoy it. This was from Dr. Marty. It says, Parkway Superintendent Keith Marty told, and you can see how communication kind of breaks down sometimes. Parkway Superintendent Keith Marty told his Deputy Superintendent, Desi Kirchhofer, the following. Next Thursday at 10:30 a.m., Haley's Comet will appear over this area. This is an event which occurs only once every 76 years. Call the school principals and have them assemble their teachers and classes on their athletic fields and explain this phenomenon to them. If it rains, then cancel the day's observation and have the classes meet in the auditorium to see a film about the comet. Deputy Superintendent Kirchhofer said to the school principals, by order of the superintendent of schools, next Thursday at 10:30 a.m., Haley's Comet will appear over your athletic field. If it rains, then cancel the day's classes and report to the auditorium with your teachers and students where you will be shown films, a phenomenal event which occurs only once every 76 years. Principals to the teachers. By order of the phenomenal superintendent of schools, at 10:30 next Thursday, Haley's Comet will appear in the auditorium. In case of rain over the athletic field, the superintendent will give another order, something which occurs once every 76 years. Teachers to students. Next Thursday at 10:30, the superintendent of schools will appear in our school auditorium with Haley's Comet, something which occurs every 76 years. If it rains, the superintendent will cancel the comet and order us all out to our phenomenal athletic fields. And finally, students to parents. When it rains next Thursday at 10:30 over the school athletic field, the phenomenal 76-year-old superintendent of schools will cancel all classes and appear before the whole school in the auditorium accompanied by Bill Haley and the Comets. It was a great 2 weeks.
How? Okay, you get to follow that.
No, I cannot. But one thing that Chris did leave out, he was with me at the Safety Network meeting, which was really interesting. There was a lot of discussion about Prop S and how it might impact safety, and as well as some other policies and procedures, and getting the students and the schools ready for whatever crisis may come along. And it was really interesting coordination between volunteers and the school and the local police and all that. So it was very interesting to get the feedback from all those different perspectives. And the Spark Academy was really interesting as well too, getting the kids' perspective on, seeing how their minds work with regards to putting together really large-minded concepts like developing apps or developing apparel lines or something like that. And then seeing how they're looking at it from both their perspective, and then they're also trying to get that perspective that a real entrepreneur would have. So it was really neat.
I agree. Loved seeing Spark last week. I love talking to the kids. They are so energetic and engaged in what they're doing, which I think was the purpose when we planned the whole program. I think getting students engaged in things outside of the classroom that are going to help their future was one of our main goals. And it was very clear that after just a few weeks, 2 weeks of school, they were already engaged and really asking essential questions to get their businesses off the ground. And I think we all enjoyed being pulled, from one group to the next. And they were polite, respectful, inquisitive, just everything you want your students to be. So kudos to our students and to Xantha Meyer, who's facilitating the class. Also, it was fun to be back in schools on the first day. We saw a lot of kids jumping right back in. Classes were working, kids were learning, teachers were assessing. Everything was orderly and quiet in the hallways, and I think everything is working now. I think we have our vaccinations all in. We have all the registration materials we need. I think it's a well-oiled machine. So congratulations to all of you for helping facilitate that.
Mrs. Goldman, I'll just report that Mr. Jacob behaved on the bus. We had some concerns, but Will kept them under control.
Grab the microphone and start telling stories. Okay, let's see. Subcommittee meetings. TLA subcommittee meeting September 16th at 3 p.m. at ISC. 10.04 board subcommittee reports, and Tom has told us about the safety network meeting. Project Parkway Steering Committee meeting.
I did attend it.
Go ahead, Sam. Why don't you tell us about it?
I'd like to share my comments on that. As many of you know, I think most of you know, that Project Parkway started some time ago, roughly 2.5 years ago, I guess. And I recall at the time that we were interviewing for superintendents, one of the questions was basically, we're in this process called Project Parkway. It's a strategic planning process, and as a superintendent, will you support it? Will you embrace it? And will you engage in the process? And sure enough, Dr. Marty has been a terrific leader in causing that to happen over this period of time, along with many, many others as well. But it's been a tremendous process. Today we had our first meeting of the year, and Desi as the facilitator. And over the years, I think we've had maybe 3 or 4 different facilitators who've all been outstanding. And when each of them left, we said, oh my gosh, this is going to fall apart. It didn't fall apart because everyone wanted to have it continue. And the facilitator knew that, and the facilitator provided the leadership to make sure that that happened. So today was a great meeting. Desi reviewed the intruder drill process, and basically we have to give him a lot of credit. This past summer, the board heard the entire story about how that drill would take place and how we would train our staff and our administrators and our teachers, and it was all approved to go ahead with it, and sure enough, it happened this summer. The training went extremely well. The drill went extremely well. The feedback has been outstanding. It really empowered everyone to know that you don't just take your kids and run and hide. Basically, there's so many different tools that you could use, and they were all much part of this drill, very significantly, and it really empowered everyone to realize that, God forbid, if we ever have a situation like that, that we do have tools to help protect our students and the adults alike. So, Desi, thank you for being the point person to lead the way, along with all the administrators and the faculty and staffs. We appreciate that very much. Desi also gave an overview of Project Parkway over the past several years. It's probably one of the most outstanding processes any school district can go through. Basically, as I read the comments in a survey that was administered this summer, One of the comments indicated that we've had many blue ribbon committees and processes in the district over the years, but Project Parkway has sustained itself over this period of time, and the accomplishments are absolutely incredible. If you ever take the time to go to the website and look at the accomplishments of what has happened over this period of time, it's just amazing what it has done for students, for faculty, for the entire district, for the community as well. So thanks to everyone who's had a part in that as well. So thank you very much.
I think the first meeting of the year is on Monday, September 15th at 7 p.m. at South High School. And I encourage everyone to attend.
I want to thank you for the nice comments, but Project Parkway really precedes me by many years. It goes back to a lot of work in this community and school districts. So I appreciate the nice words, but I think 3 superintendents have been involved in Project Parkway, and a lot of people, a lot of board members. So it's really, and Desi's work in tracing some history is very, very important, I think, in terms of really understanding that history and the value of the tradition of Project Parkway. As we get ready in the near future to kind of roll over, we call it Project Parkway 2.0. Because we really do need to think about the next generation. But I think we're well positioned to be able to move forward. But thank you for those kind words and that review, Sam.
Okay, we're going to move on now to action items 11.0. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented in the August 27th, 2014 board materials?
So moved.
Second. Is there anything that needs to be pulled to action or closed? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 12.0 action items. 12.01 approval of Parkway's Comprehensive Assessment Plan 2014-2015. Call on Mr. Kevin Beckner, Assessment Coordinator, to give us a brief overview of what's in the report.
A brief overview.
Brief overview.
Yes. Thank you, President Feldman, for the opportunity to present this, and thank you, rest of the board, for being here. Appreciate, again, the chance. Just as with Project Parkway and curriculum areas and program evaluations, we don't just like to plan 1 year at a time. We like to plan multiple years out, and as a result, this plan presented this year, you'll find is very similar to those of previous years, because this is actually the final year of our 3-year comprehensive assessment plan. So many of our assessments and their purposes remain unchanged from previous years. That being said, there are a few changes to note, many of which come from the external side, those that are required of us from the state. You can see a visual here, and want to highlight some of these changes for you and how they impact our school. One of the biggest ones is that the amount of state testing time is being greatly reduced. In fact, over our elementaries and our middle schools, about 20% less testing overall when it comes to state testing. In 3rd and 4th grade, and again in 6th and 7th grade, the tests are going from multiple hours per content area all the way down to an hour total for those grade levels. So we do see significantly reduced state testing in our elementary and middle schools. We also see our high schools reducing from 6 end-of-course exams down to 4 end-of-course exams. The American History exam and the English 1 exam, which have been given the last 2 years, will be eliminated. So we'll be going back to 4 EOCs, which are what we had for a long time previously before the other 2 were added. And so now we're reducing those. So that will decrease the burden in terms of the amount of testing time on our students. At the same time, those tests are going online, and our elementary and middle school assessments for the first time will be online, and these will also be adaptive. Adapt is a fancy word to say every kid is not taking the same exact test. The tests are actually changing in response to the student answers. There's a long history of that. If any of you have taken the graduate records exam, the GRE, to get into graduate school, if you took it and I took it, we had different assessments because the test actually changes in response to you. That's great because we have some students who, if they're just struggling through, they're going to keep struggling through. Now the test will actually change and adapt and adjust to the level of questions. And by the same token, the students who are really doing well and acing everything, will continue to give them more challenging questions throughout the test. That is a logistical challenge for us to deliver those, but we're confident that we can do it, and we are in planning for that now. Jason Rooks and I are visiting all our elementary and middle schools to create specific plans for each school for how that will take place. Another change is the ACT. For Parkway, it's not actually a significant change because for 5 years now we've been giving the ACT and offering the ACT to all of our juniors. Now the state will be offering the ACT to all juniors across the state. That will put us on a level playing field in terms of our score. We always seem to have to caveat our score with all of our students take this exam, despite us still having a very good score on the ACT. We always do have to mention that in comparison with other districts. Now everyone will be on the same page. The only slight change for us in that regard means it's going from a test that we offer to all of our students to one that now will be required for all of our juniors. Not a problem for us since we already test such a large proportion of our juniors. So those are some of the highlights of the state assessment plan, the external assessments. We do have a few of our internal assessments, the ones that we choose to give to measure student growth and learning and those things that we really value. We do have some minor changes that I will bring to your attention. We choose to give 2 other exams within the ACT series. Those have always been the Explore and the Plan. We give the Explore in 8th grade. We give the Plan in 10th grade. Those are changing, not by our choice, but because ACT has changed those assessments. They're just now known as the Aspire. They are also moving online, just as our state tests are moving online. But they give us an early snapshot of our students' preparedness for the ACT and gives us an idea of what kind of score students might have and how it gives parents information about how they can plan for their student success on the ACT. What might they need to do differently? Might they need ACT prep courses? Might they need specific content areas to focus on? So we will be administering those. Just as we did Explore in 8th grade, we'll be administering the Aspire in 8th grade. Just as we did Plan in 10th grade, we'll be administering the Aspire test also in 10th grade for this year. We will also reevaluate that after this year as we have to develop a new 3-year comprehensive assessment plan just to see, are those the right grade levels? Is that the right information that we need? Is that the kind of information that we want to have about our students, and is that the right timing for it? But for this year, continuation of 8th grade and 10th grade, along with giving our juniors the ACT in that ACT series. We also see an increased use of pre- and post-tests within our classrooms and our local assessments, particularly at the secondary level. We've really tried to tie these in with our PLC process and our collaborative teams wherever possible. Part of that is a result of we need to measure student growth now as part of our teacher evaluation, so we've really worked with our teachers to embed that within that process. It won't be a significant amount of time or a noticeable change for many of our students because in many areas our teachers are already doing pre-tests and post-tests. Now it's just formalizing that and naming them and making sure that we're being consistent in their use. With that, many of the other assessments do remain the same as we've had in previous years, and their purposes remain the same as presented in your board documents, so I'll turn it over to you for questions. Sure.
Many of our juniors take the ACT starting the end of their sophomore year going forward, take it multiple times. So by the time they get to April, many of them have scored what they feel like they need to or what they feel is their best score. So with the new state requirement, do any of those former tests that were administered outside of the school day count?
Currently, the plan from the state is that they would all be required to take it at junior year to give us a snapshot of that point in time. That's something that we are in conversations with them about because we know, let's say a student has scored a 36. Mm-hmm. And they say, I don't want to take it again. My score might go down, and I don't want that. Right. So that is something that we're in conversation with the state about. Obviously, this plan being the first time that they've done it, they're still working through some of those logistics. They still haven't identified a test vendor for our grade level tests and those sorts of things. Mm-hmm. So they are still working on those things, and we're hopeful that we can come to a resolution on some of that. But those are things that we're advocating for to them. Perhaps before April would be great. Yeah.
Because I remember a couple of years ago, there was a student that I knew that had that situation exactly. He'd already scored a 35. He was done.
Sure. And
he didn't want to take it, but he wasn't really required to take it.
Correct.
By the state, so he was able to sit out that day. So
correct. Currently, so we have to think about all of our accountability, like MSIP. With MSIP, they just need a score, mm-hmm. and it doesn't matter whether that takes place junior year, sophomore year. What we do like to do is get a sort of same time frame as well. Often, where we want to say, okay, you took it. When did you take it? So that junior year gives us that. Mm-hmm. In this case, frankly, we don't believe it's best practice to make a kid take a test that they've already taken, but we are going to have to follow whatever those state guidelines mm-hmm. end up being around that.
When you get that information, when that is finalized, will you drop us a note and let
Absolutely.
us know how that was resolved?
Yes.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I have a couple of questions.
Sure.
I noticed in the report that the NAEP is only conducted on North High.
Yeah, good question.
And then the TIMN, the Trends in International Math and Science, mm-hmm. is only at South High. Could you explain?
Yeah, totally. So the NAEP, we call it the NAEP, is a sampling assessment that they do nationwide. So not every student takes it, not every school district takes it. Every year we tend to have somewhere between 0 and 4 schools selected to take it. So last year we had 0. The year before that we had 4. This year again we have 4, I believe, schools selected. Or we have several, I'm forgetting the exact number, but it's in your documents. And so it is not something of our choosing. It's something that the state contacts us and says, here are the schools that have been chosen. Part of that is where we get, typically, we have very few, as we all know, true national exams in our country. Even when we talk about ACT or AP, those are still selective based on the students who are self-selecting to take in many places because they are college-bound. With the NAEP, it is actually sampling, trying to get a random sample across the country so that we can get a sense of how are we doing as a country. It is very well regarded in assessment circles as a really high quality assessment. And the TIMS, the Trends in International Math and Science, is the same way. It's a sampling assessment. With the TIMS, it actually samples not just from the United States, but from other countries as well. And that's where we can start to get some of those comparisons between countries where we have very few of those assessments. To my knowledge, this is actually the first time we've had a Parkway school selected for the TIMS. And so we have not had experience participating in it up to this point. So this will be our first experience with the TIMS. But again, of course, not every school is taking that because it is a sample, and they just pick schools to take it.
I also noticed that the gifted program is only being tested in kindergarten.
Yeah, and
what's the philosophy with that?
That
Can
is actually,
change over time,
and
or?
Denise might be able to speak more specifically to it, but that is actually just the first universal screening that we do for all students, and by that we just mean every student's going to take something that we're going to use to help make sure that we're identifying students who might not be rising to our attention. That doesn't mean, though, that that's the only time that students might be tested for gifted. In fact, this is just an initial screening, and even students who score high enough that we say we might want to look at them experience more screening to see if they do in fact qualify. We also do test new students who come in first grade in case they weren't here in kindergarten, I believe first and second grade, to make sure that those students have that same opportunity. With that, it's a nonverbal assessment. We know my daughter's in kindergarten. She can't read yet, so it's a nonverbal assessment, really doing pattern recognition, doing some things with visuals and asking them to identify things. So while that's the only universal one, there are additional screenings when teachers say, hey, or a parent says, could we please look at my student? Could we see what's going on here? There certainly are, but those would be done on an individual level, not on a district-wide level.
All right, well, thank you very much, Kevin.
Can I just kind of a little preview, everything's embargoed yet, but the next 48 hours, I guess, Kevin, right? MSEP performance will be made public, and I just want to say Kevin and Lisa, Dr. Meredith, have really stayed on top of that, and I just think that, again, we're watching that very, very carefully, and certainly there's more than just testing. There's attendance and graduation rate, but we really are monitoring that and certainly trying to make that part of certainly our ongoing work, but just to make the public aware that those results will be forthcoming, coming soon, and embargoed for tomorrow or Friday, we think.
Results will likely be in the paper on Friday morning.
All right, thank you very much. So, may I have a motion and a second that the Board of Education approve by consent the 2014-15 Comprehensive Assessment Plan as written?
So moved. Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. 13.0 Policy Review. 13.01 Policy JICG. Oh, I'm not supposed to read these, am I? No. Does anybody have any questions about the policies? Okay, then these two policies, the smoking and community use of school facilities, will be on the agenda for approval on September 10th. 14.01 Math Program Evaluation, Preliminary Conversation. I'd like to call down Dr. Nathan Tyson, Director of Data Management and Research. Good evening.
President Feldman, Vice President Jacob, Board of Directors, Dr. Martin. Ms. Stover, thank you very much for having me. And we are beginning the 2014-15 program evaluation cycle with the mathematics program. And it's certainly been fantastic working with Toby and Susan thus far. Just briefly, I kind of want to make sure that you all understand that this is a work session. So the idea is that we bring to you the feedback that we have received from stakeholder groups throughout the district, including parents and teachers and administrators. We bring that feedback to you. You take a look at it, and then if there's some additions or subtractions or anything like that, questions, we'd certainly note those questions at this time. And then again, note them just so that as we're moving forward and studying math, we will be prepared to study those specific questions that you brought up. So I first just want to say just a real quick story. Early one morning, a mother went in to wake up her son. "Wake up, son, it's time to go to school." The son said, "But why, Mom? I don't want to go." To which the mother replied, "Give me 3 reasons why you don't want to go." In reply, the son said, "Well, the kids hate me, for one, and the teachers hate me, and I hate math." The mother responded, "Oh, that's no reason not to go to school. Come on now and get ready." So the son responded, "Well, you give me 3 reasons why I should go to school." To which the mother replied, "Well, you're 52 years old, you're a math teacher, and you're the chair of the math department." So, see, and clearly this isn't one of our math teachers, and not in Parkway. And as a matter of fact, really with the program evaluation process, our whole point is to make sure that math is a great thing in Parkway, make sure our students enjoy it and love it, and that the teachers enjoy it and love it as well and love to teach it. The main topics that we're looking at here, just 5. I think Toby and Susan have really done a good job kind of condensing and compiling all of the feedback that they received. They've received a lot, as well as, Becky Litherland also. It's hard now with this new TLA structure. There's like 20 people involved in each of these. Becky and Jenny Profit. Sorry, guys. All right, so mission and vision. And really, so I'll just kind of go through, here's our main topics, mission, vision, assessment, curriculum, instructional practices, and resources. I'll go through just quickly the guiding questions under each of them, just to kind of make sure we all have an understanding of where we are with the stakeholder feedback. And then again, please feel free to open up at the end and provide your feedback to us as well. So with mission and vision, thank you. You can just push it. You just want to advance it? I'm just going to go through each one of them. Okay, great. So with mission and vision, really does the Math Parkway, the Parkway Math curriculum foster competence? Does it foster curiosity? Does it foster and ensure that students are capable? And then the last one there is to ensure that they are prepared for the challenges of an ever-changing world. So that should sound very familiar. It's our mission and vision. And so those are kind of the four questions that we have around mission and vision. Next, please. Assessments. Go ahead and list those out. What impact do state and national assessments have on instructional decision-making? Does the assessment system target critical areas that are predictive of overall achievement in math? And does the current assessment system provide information needed to identify, diagnose, respond to, and monitor student achievement in mathematics? Under curriculum, does the math curriculum provide an aligned and articulated path that prepares students for their next educational challenge? And does the Parkway Math curriculum provide a relevant and rigorous learning experience for all of our students? Under instructional practices, Does the Parkway Math program provide appropriate challenges and interventions? Do Parkway teachers feel confident in their ability to use research-based instructional practices in math? And do our current Parkway systems and structures allow for maximum student achievement in math? And then under resources, are adequate and effective resources to support classroom learning available to students and parents? And do teachers have adequate resources to plan and implement the math curriculum? And so while that was, we've had just the 5, and there were some questions underneath each of them, really that is in essence what we need to explore, study, research, send surveys about, and that will keep us busy. So, but we do and are always open to anything that our esteemed board would like to add in terms of the math program evaluation, and we'll be sure to follow up with you all on anything that you would like us to study as well. So I'd like to turn it over to you all.
Algebra 1 is kind of a different animal than the rest of the math courses in high school. Are you going to focus on that in some way?
So what I'm hearing you say is you would like us to study Algebra 1, right? Because right now we're just sort of gathering the feedback from the board.
Well, I think the board would like to see that.
Some specific
At least
study
I would.
in the area of Algebra 1, anything specific, or just how are students doing in
How
Algebra
are they
1?
doing?
How's it working?
How do people feel about it? Has it become a little more, we're not hearing.
Is it accepted
Yeah.
now? Or?
Perceptions.
Perceptions.
Standards-based, correct way to teach it.
Okay.
In the middle school, they were doing a flipped classroom program in math at one point, and then I'm not seeing that in the next grade level yet in math. So I would be interested in whether or not the flipped classroom style is anything that we're going to move forward with, if it's a good approach or if it's successful, and how the students are achieving under that type of arrangement and learning.
Those are all great questions. We'll be sure to include them.
Okay.
What do you mean by, in this process, you're going to select a pilot for resources? What does that mean?
I'm trying to remember I didn't remember anything about a pilot.
Select potential pilot resources based on resource rubric.
CJ, can you put it back?
That's in January.
Okay, so would one of you guys want to come up and speak? Or I don't know if we want to speak about it, or just, is there a specific, I think the idea is there a specific question that you want us to be making sure that we're studying?
Maybe just clarify what that means.
Just clarify.
Wait, Lisa, if you don't talk in the microphone, then folks at home can't hear you.
So in the process of the evaluation cycle in any curricular area, once we identify the needs and we write the curriculum, then we seek resources. And so with the seeking of resources within any content area, that is part of what we do is we pilot. So like last year, whenever we were adopting the new resources for science and social studies with the digital resources, part of that was, before we selected those, there were pilots in classrooms. So once the curriculum is adjusted, if it needs to be adjusted after the program evaluation, then the coordinators from the different levels and teachers will seek resources that will help us achieve those outcomes. Within that, there will be plenty of opportunity. They'll develop a rubric of what are the qualities of a good resource, and then families, teachers, and administrators will all have input into that. It'll be narrowed down. There'll be pilots, and then a selection will be made. So the same process that we use with all curricular resources. Does that help? It's a flip in the past several years. Before, we used to select the resource and then write our curriculum. And so what feels different with that now is we write our curriculum, then we write the rubric of what do we need to help us deliver the curriculum, and then we go shopping. Where before we used to go shopping and then write.
just want to follow up your question, and I don't want to try to put words in your mouth, but along with assessing Algebra 1, do you have interest in wanting to know the readiness to move that type of program to, yeah?
Absolutely.
Okay. So it's a matter of not just staying with Algebra 1, but are we ready to move?
Right.
Okay, good.
And Nathan, will the results of when you guys give us part of your report on Algebra 1, I would be interested in seeing the breakdown between the high schools. See how the results, the kids from Fern and then the 4 traditional high schools, because I think that there's been some differences among the teaching staffs. And I'd like to know, how they, the kids that haven't met all the standards during the school year, some of them do summer school and they only meet the standards that they had not met yet. Some of them have to retake the whole course in summer school. So I'm very interested to see how that plays out and actually to have it delineated what the differences are in how the schools approach that.
That would definitely, yeah, we can certainly do that.
Okay, so the next thing, I don't know if you can do this or not. I know you do postgraduate surveys of students, and I remember reading in the paper a couple of years ago the high number of Missouri students who needed remediation in math when they get to be freshmen in college. And I'm wondering if there's any part of your surveys with graduates that can indicate the level of Parkway graduates that need remediation.
And I'm trying to recall now, I don't think we currently have that wording in our graduate survey. But that's certainly something. We're always adjusting the graduate survey, so if that's something you all would be interested in the future.
Well, I think if we want to know if we're preparing them for their next educational challenge, that would be
helpful.
That would be a pretty good indicator.
Be good information, yes.
And then my other question is about the new TLA structure. I'm interested how teachers are reacting to the new TLA structure since they have a year under their belts now. I know that when Lisa first showed us that diagram, I went a little crazy thinking, is she nuts? But I've gotten more used to it over time, and now I think she's brilliant. But I'd like to know if it's working for teachers.
Within the context of the math program evaluation?
Exactly, because we have 2 science ladies in secondary that are,
Sure.
They're also math ladies, but they're primarily science ladies, right? And so I'm interested in that, to see if the teachers feel like they're getting the support that they need.
Certainly.
Nathan, since it's up there, the question, first question up there, is there a component of communications in there when you talk about resources? In other words,
I don't think as written, but we can certainly, if that's something you're interested in.
Well, I think a lot of questions, I think I can speak for the board. Sometimes we get questions that parents would like to have language they're familiar with describing what their students are doing, what's changed, what's different. I think that could be part of resources, but I think particularly good resources that are available to parents to be engaged in some fashion.
Right, and actually that came up.
Fair?
Yeah, and that came up a lot during some of our conversations with parents. So yes. All right.
I do have a question.
Yes.
What is the vision, the end result of what we want for a student in mathematics in terms of knowledge of mathematics, application to world events and needs, et cetera? But do we have a vision that we want our students to be the top math students in the world? I think we have to think that broadly and that forwardly to be competitive, because it's an issue everywhere in terms of math and science. And are we really preparing our students for the future, for many fields that apply math and science concepts and principles? So, are we really kind of shooting for the very top program? And if so, then what resources are we looking at outside of Parkway to identify top-notch programs and resources that will help us design our curriculum and our instructional program to meet that goal?
So bring in some outside expertise maybe as we look at this, and then maybe clarify vision format.
One of my usual questions.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you all very much.
We look forward to the report. Now, 14.02. Now it is my pleasure to call Mr. Bruce Major, who's going to give us his SSD Public Review Committee synopsis. And he's got some guests with him. Welcome back.
Good to be back. The panel here. I think you all have received the report itself. If you managed to get through the executive summary, thank you, thank you, thank you. This evening I'm just going to cover the process real quickly, summarize the recommendations, and then turn it over to the professionals over here. I'm purely an elected official in an amateur capacity on the Public Review Committee, but fortunately for our children, there are a lot of really dedicated and professional folks involved. So on the panel discussion this evening, we'll have Dr. Meredith to provide the Parkway perspective, particularly with regards to career and technical education. We've got Vicki Manning, who is the PACCD president, and I include her among the professionals that are part and parcel of meeting our children's needs in this district. Dr. Zigrang, who is our SSD director for Parkway. And finally, Peg Listina, who is Parkway's representative on the SSD Board of Education. Thank you all for joining me. I really appreciate it. All right. Leading off the sorry, I didn't know I had multiple clicks involved here. The Public Review Committee is mandated by Missouri statute, and it requires that the 9 members be appointed, 3 by the State Department of Elementary and Secondary Education, 3 by the Governing Council, and 3 by the SSD PAC, the Parent Advisory Council. And the statute says we're supposed to review SSD's operation with respect to providing special education services. Each and every Public Review Committee has also added on career and technical education because SSD has that charter and those tax dollars in St. Louis County. So we always consider that an important part of the review. Our job on the committee is to report findings and provide recommendations and observations in the final report, which is due July 1. I'm proud to report that we did submit that on July 8th, but it's just that good. Not to my knowledge. The Commissioner of Education did inform us that she had no authority to extend our deadline, so I took that as permission to to polish the product. Basically, I will apologize to my fellow Parkway board members if I wasn't up to my usual level of boardsmanship the last few months on the board. I was deeply involved in this process, and if you do the math in the parentheses over there, even board member math will tell you that quite a bit of work went into this process, and it was the number of meetings doesn't really capture it. If you want to get into the gory details, There are appendices to the report itself, and that'll tell you all the documents we reviewed. And most of those we had to do, we divvied up the work between the 9 members and did summaries of many of those documents, and there were literally thousands of pages that we covered and talked about and processed. So, by the way, that last point 5, that was at Gerard's Restaurant over on Manchester. If you've never been, good place to celebrate completion. All right, a couple of broad observations that I'd just like to share with you. And I think when I was on the board, we had a conversation regarding the Baldrige process. And I'd like to amend my comments from roughly January or February of this year, when I think I expressed some skepticism of the amount of investment of time and resources that Baldrige entailed and the potential paybacks. I think after completing this committee review, I am much more convinced of the efficacy and value of the Baldrige process, for what it's worth. So the broad observations is, an SSD started with the Baldrige process was it 5 years ago? 4 or 5 years ago, I think. I was on the governing council at the time. I should know, but Sam, I'm with you on time frames. They just go by in a hurry. Conclusions are that Baldrige has made a substantial difference in SSD's self-awareness and ability to respond with systemic solutions to long-standing problems. Also found that the organizations involved, so looking at SSD and the component districts within St. Louis County, are very stable organizations. But if you get to that third bullet, the interactions between those organizations need to mature and tend to rely much too much on personalities and the individual skills of educational leaders. So to cut through to the recommendations, recommendation number 1 was that SSD establish a leadership academy aimed at its own leaders and component district leadership, with an eye toward elevating the shared level of knowledge, sharing best practices, because we think there are outstanding pockets within St. Louis County, but not universal use of those methods. Recommendation 2, that SSD complete work on and develop a standard template for partnership agreement documents. And those are largely out of a operational audit that was performed by SSD last year, and looking a lot, focused primarily on delivery of services in the component districts as opposed to internal SSD operations. In any event, the current assurance statement that SSD has with each component district is basically a one-page statement of intentions. And there is a task force right now working on the new partnership agreements, and that involves multiple superintendents throughout the county, and Dr. Marty's involved. So I would anticipate that document will be more than a page long, and involves some very specific contractual obligations spelled out between the component district and SSD. And I think I'll take a little dance on a soapbox for Dr. Carey, or Mr. Carey, if I could here. He's the SSD superintendent. And he and I had numerous conversations over the years where he expressed a desire that the term partnership be used in in the proper context when talking about partnerships between SSD and its component districts, because in fact there are a whole suite of explicit legal obligations on SSD that they have to make happen regardless of the relationship with the component district. And I think, and if you read the extended part of the report, we make a note, the Public Review Committee made a note that in fact the current state of the art in St. Louis County does not look like partnerships between SSD and the component districts, but we'd sure like to get there. And I think this recommendation too is aimed squarely at that. Recommendation 3, that SSD with its PAC, the Parent Advisory Council Committee, acronym exhaustion up here, and component district PACs elevate the awareness and advocacy skills of parents, aided by the expertise of special and general education teachers. This came up in the context of a lot of the work that's being done by the Equity Task Force with SSD, and a recognition in our meetings with the PAC that the delivery of service is not a level playing field throughout St. Louis County. Children in different districts receive demonstrably different levels of service for the same needs. And a lot of that, there can be many reasons, but I think prominent is districts that had the highest ratings tend to have the most active PACs and the most capable parents with advocacy skills. So the notion is to share those skills throughout the county. And then recommendation 4 was actually in response to the PRC's question to the SSD board as to whether, do you really need a PRC anymore? If you look historically, when the statute was amended back in '96 and created the PRC, SSD was in the news on a regular basis for all the wrong reasons. A lot of those problems don't exist anymore, thankfully. So we kind of wondered, since the statute actually uses the term allegations in its charge to the PRC, investigate allegations. Nobody around the table could remember the last time there had been an allegation against SSD. So we kind of wondered if was there even a continuing need for the PRC? And I think Peg answered that in no uncertain terms. and thank you for that. They assured us that the PRC process provided an excellent independent look at the work of SSD, and that the board certainly valued that perspective. And so that led us to recommendation 4, which was the idea of a standing committee to elevate a lot of these questions that you see year after year or every 4 years in the PRC reports. Keep an ongoing conversation. So that's recommendation 4. The 5th recommendation focused in a direction near and dear to my heart, and that's career and tech ed. If you're aware, SSD runs 2 technical high schools, North and South Tech, but their market penetration is, I think, substantially less than Parkway's early childhood market penetration. And in fact, there was some discussion of Dr. Larson was on the Public Review Committee, and he and I both thought that a market study might be appropriate on that front. But no self-interest there. Neither one of us wanted the job. but the recommendation basically focused on SSD emphasizing a coordinating function in the CTE field. Basically because the resources are not there to greatly expand enrollment at either North or South Tech, but they can certainly expand the impact in component districts of CTE opportunities and understanding of parents of what those opportunities might be best for their children. Recommendation 6 is not real sexy, but from the operational audit, the idea that literally student data is being collected by hand, transported in someone's trunk, and entered in SSD computers because the component district and SSD can't reach an agreement to share student data in the year 2014 is pretty appalling. And the final recommendation, consistent with my earlier comments, that SSD continue to use the Baldrige process and use its precepts in creating those collaborative efforts with the component districts. All right, I've soaked up enough time. With that, I would like to turn it over, unless there's any questions for me, I would like to hand it over to the panel and offer that they make some introductory remarks, and then y'all can have at them with purple stickies as you desire.
Peg's ending, I'm starting. Okay. Now does it work? Okay, does that work now? Okay. I just wanted to start by saying that as I was preparing for today, or this evening, and I was speaking with Don Bohannon, who is our Associate Superintendent, Nancy Ide, our Communications Department, I was informed that this hasn't even gone officially to our cabinet nor to our governing council yet. So this is really hot off the press. It is, the full review is posted on SSD's website for anyone's reading pleasure, but I would say that the cabinet for SSD is still in the beginning phases of digesting the information and determining how they're going to take the recommendations and move forward, and that more information will be coming to districts as they develop the plan and roll it out to the executive leadership team, the governing council, and most specifically the Board of Education members. So from what I understand, this is one of the first, if not the first, presentations on the reviews. So we're still learning as we go along. Exactly. And to speak to one of the recommendations about the data, actually I would like to say that we're ahead of the game on that. That's why Chelsea and I were kind of going, not Parkway. In terms of data collection and sharing, we already started last fall working with the data department in both districts and trying to collaborate on how we can most efficiently look at data as it relates to our students with special needs, and really because we want to make sure that we have the right programming in place and that we're looking at all the information to help service our students in the best way possible. So in terms of Parkway, we are ahead of the game on that. We have some work to do, but it's I think we're much further along than other districts. So.
Hello. Is this, yes. We had our first PACCD steering meeting this year, and we looked over the recommendations, and we certainly endorse all of them, and we would be happy to help other districts strengthen their PACs. I know from attending SSD PAC meetings, many don't have the support that we get from the administration and the just the whole system of encouraging parents to participate. And so we definitely appreciate that at Parkway. And if we can help in any way, just let us know.
So my role on the panel this evening is in particularly related to recommendation 5 and looking at career and technical education. And as we look at Parkway's mission and vision, we certainly see that recommendation 5 will certainly help us as we continue our journey of implementing the recommendations that came out of the Experiential Learning Task Force last year. If we look at the concept of students pursuing their personal interest in their endeavor to prepare them for their next endeavor, whatever that is, be it career, be it college, be it a combination of the two, be it the military, what is their choice beyond high school, that we certainly see students participating in the technical high schools as one of the options that we need to continue to market and enhance with our students as we look at that continuum of experiential learning. So we are excited to see recommendation 5, and I know Jennifer Stanfield is working on how do we continue to build and market that as one of the options for our students as they seek their personal interest.
Am I gonna, do you want to?
Can I add to that? And just to add to that, too, in terms of CTE here in Parkway, we do have a unique partnership between SSD and Parkway in terms of our health services partnership and agreement. And it's, you want to talk to that, Lisa?
I do think that that is a unique structure in our partnership between Barnes, BJC Special School District, where they are providing the staff member from the technical high school, Parkway, and now Lindenwood University, with giving us the facility for that and also offering scholarships for our students who participate in that, meet certain criteria, and choose to go to Lindenwood. So the partnership around that is really growing. That set the foundation for us as we looked at our Spark program and offering other experiential learning. And it is very unique, and we do appreciate that partnership with Special School District as we looked at expanding and offering those real-world experiences for our students. So thank you for reminding me about that partnership.
Well, and I want to thank Parkway for being involved in a very long and sometimes difficult conversation about how special education and general education work together for our children. We have been having some long, long conversations, and I have had the opportunity to see many different aspects of how that's played out. And tonight I heard us talking about wanting to prepare our students for the future to the very best possible place. And that has always been Parkway's goal. Our children deserve such good educations. And part of our children, our student body, approximately, and I'm not really good on all the perfect numbers, but approximately 2,000 of our children receive special education. When communities talk about special education, one of the important things I think we all ought to be able to remember is that it started out as a conversation that was sort of based in charity. We need to help these children, and that's a good place to be. And then when the federal law, IDEA and ADA, were passed, the conversation became more about the civil rights, the legal responsibilities. And lately the conversation has evolved again, and it's now more of a corporate sort of conversation about facilities and budgets and skills and supports and actually even branding, whether schools are concerned about how a child's performance, the performance of a child with disabilities, affects their brand as a district. And I would like to push you as a board to a different level, and I hope it will become the higher level for our community and for the entire nation. about talking about special education, because it's about the hidden curriculum of special education. We were talking tonight about the math curriculum. Well, every single school in this country has a hidden curriculum in the provision of special education. And that's the curriculum that we teach our non-disabled children every single day from the time they enter school until they leave. And what we teach those children is how to think about and talk to and interact with people who have disabilities. And what we're really doing, and I think so many of us don't really get this, what we are really doing is teaching our non-disabled children how to treat us when we become physically disabled, when we lose our sight or our hearing or the ability to speak comfortably and easily, or we have mobility problems. We're the ones who are training our doctors, our nurses, our policemen, our clerks at the pharmacy, how to treat an older person who can no longer speak as quickly or hear as well. We have trained them from the time they entered our school, not so much by what we say, but what we do. Our children watch and know, where do we put the classrooms for the children with disabilities? Are they in the basement next to the timeout room or whatever we call it now? Are they in the attic? Are they down at the end of the hall? Or are they in the middle of the school where everybody else is functioning? We teach them how we talk about those children. You don't think they're listening, but they do. We teach them how to treat us, and we teach them by our example how to treat their spouses and their siblings and their friends who come home from a war or a car accident or an occupational accident, no longer able to do certain things, or perhaps emotionally incapable of being the same person that they were before that happened. We teach them how to be the parents of a child with a disability, because we know from the figures that 1 in 6 of them will become parents of children with disabilities. As a community, disability is the thing we don't talk about. We will teach you about drugs. We will teach you about how to drive. We will teach you any number of skills. But it will be very difficult for you to find a curriculum that will teach you how to help and work with your disabled parents when you are in your 30s. We don't have the kinds of information available we don't build it into our curriculums as much as we ought to, because we're talking about a future, but we're assuming sometimes that the future is all about how we earn our living rather than how we live. So I'm asking you as a board, and as a board member who knows there's only so much that you can actually do as a board, but there are some very important things you can do. You're going to get this report that tells you how special district acts with 23 different districts, 256 schools, and about 4,000 employees. And it would be easy to put it aside and kind of say, yes, well, it looks like they're doing a good job now. We have other things to do. But I'm going to ask you to make sure that you take your part in making sure that we, as a community, as a school community, have policies that actually include our children with disabilities beyond how we're going to discipline them and what we're going to do about evaluating them. I'm going to ask you to look at your policies and see if they are negative, don't do this, don't do that, and don't do the next thing, or positive, the way you see them in so many corporations, if we're going to have corporate discussions. Corporations will turn around and say, it is the policy of this district, of this company, to treat all of our employees and all of our customers as respectfully and welcoming as possible. Is that our policy in our schools? We look at our facilities. Boards have a great responsibility about facilities. Do we ask for a report about where the classrooms are, how big they are, how adequate they are, how supplied they are with the same materials that we supply to our non-disabled kids? And finally, boards have a responsibility in hiring. And do we look at our hiring practices and ask ourselves, are there barriers here that we as the temporarily non-disabled people don't see, that don't encourage anyone who has a disability to apply for work with us? Do we have protocols that eliminate the possibility of someone with a disability working for us except in the cafeteria and the janitorial staff? Those are areas that a Board of Education can easily begin to access, as well as when we talk about curriculums and we talk about the testing, like we did tonight, do we ask the questions, how are we providing adaptive testing? What are we doing for students who have learning disabilities in this area? The education of kids with disabilities is a two-way street between general ed and special ed, because the end goal is for our students to become, not to become, because they are part of the community, but to be accepted as part of the community for all of the different kinds of needs that they will have. Because someday, I promise you, we will all have those meetings. We will all have those needs. And any one of us that ends up in a rehabilitation situation in our old age will find out that you too will have an IEP before they will let you leave the rehab facility. And there will be a group of people discussing you and your needs and your abilities. And if we've trained them right, if we've trained those non-disabled people right, they will talk to you instead of your children, and they will ask you what you need. So that's my challenge to you.
Questions?
This is for Lisa and for Barb, I'm not sure, but all of you really. It seems like one of the areas where we can capitalize almost immediately would be with South and North Tech. How do we, are you meeting to talk about how do we do that and how do we get that information out? It seems like we almost have to get it out well before the time they're in high school if they're going to take advantage of it. Can't wait till they're juniors.
Yes. And I'll go ahead and talk explicitly here because it's certainly recognized on the SSD side, and there's probably at least a subconscious awareness on the Parkway side that there is an impediment to delivery of CTE services at South Tech, which are the programs that Parkway students are eligible for. And that's precisely the name Special School District and the association with special education. And a regrettable number of our parents do not want their kids associated with that. And one of the victories of Mr. Carey's administration was regrettably getting the name Special School District off of his buses and putting district number ... That's a problem.
So as we look at helping students make informed decisions about the courses that they will take, we know that we have work to do in helping students learn about those choices. So learning about South County Career and Technical Education High School, or the Technical High School. And so as the Experiential Learning Task Force met last year, one of the questions was, what do we do in middle school so that students have had exploration and have enough information to plan their four-year plan for high school with intentionality and with flexibility, so as their interests grow. And so I know that that is something that Jennifer in particularly is working with the CTE teachers in our middle school and our high schools. How do we help students know what all of their options are? As we continue to work with our counselors and with Naviance and help students understand their personal interest, that is another place that we know we need to increase the counselors' understanding and the general education teachers' understandings of the rich and rigorous opportunities at the technical high schools, so that if the adults within our systems have some of the perceptions that Mr. Major just talked about, that we can help our adults with their perceptions as well, so that those don't get transferred to our students as they're making decisions. So it's on our radar, and I know that Jennifer is working on opportunities of how to increase that.
Sometimes it's got to start with relationships, and I think we, last year, Dr. Baker from the principal at South Tech participated in the Experiential Task Force and really opened up an invitation for people to visit. I know Mr. Kirchhoffer and Lisa, you really took advantage of getting to know him better in the curriculum. So I think we're establishing some really wonderful relationships, and he's very, very much willing to work with us. So I think sometimes it's got to start at that level. I will say, I think we have right now, and it's not, and Mr. Carey and I have talked many times, so I think last year we had about 125 students at South Tech. So it's not that we don't have a presence there. We could certainly double that, triple it probably, to have the ability to do that. So we do have students, primarily from South High School, I think, just because of geography. But so we are engaged there with students, but we certainly could have many, many more there. And and they're also, I think Dr. Baker is opening up the possibility of more of a senior entrance too, even though a student hasn't planned, all of a sudden has an interest, that could be possible as well. So I think there's some developing, good developing ideas here.
And I had a conversation with Jennifer Stanfill earlier today, and one of the things that she said she's focusing on is really thinking about what is the niche of our CTE programs, our Project Lead the Way classrooms, and the offerings that we have. What's the niche of the Career and Technical High School? What's the niche of our Spark program? And making sure that we let those niches grow and not try to duplicate that work, but let's increase the offerings and the selections for our students by having different levels of expertise and different opportunities, and not try to duplicate. There is no way that within Parkway we could duplicate the opportunities that the students at the Career and Technical High School have. And so I know Jennifer is also working on how do we get opportunities, how do we create opportunities for our teachers to visit the Career and Technical High Schools as well, to help with their understanding of the rigor of the programs. We know that has changed because of the rigor of the careers.
I had a couple of questions. This is just, yeah. Go ahead.
I was just going to add a little celebration to that. The SSD cabinet did listening tours across the county at least one high school in each partner district, and they visited with students, most specifically with IEPs, to get an idea from them if the programming that we were providing for them was preparing them for life after high school. And we visited South High School, and I was in a classroom with a young man who said that he attended South Tech, and he was finishing his junior year of the culinary arts program there. And he already knew that he was going to go to Florida after school to attend college, and that he planned to be a top chef in the Florida area. And he had specifically chosen Florida because of the research he had done through that program. So that's a celebration that we need to to acknowledge in that, we sometimes look at our CTE as, for our students that perhaps don't have the disabilities, but here was a young man who was already focused on his post-secondary outcomes in his career and how his transition plan had guided him through that, and that program at South Tech, how it supported his success after high school. So.
Just while we're talking about CTE, I don't know how many of you realize that we do have advanced placement classes in our tech schools, and many of our students are earning college credits while they're seniors at our tech schools.
My general question was, how many students does SSD serve? So it's roughly one of the biggest districts in the state. Yeah.
It's the largest.
Use the
microphone.
I'm sorry. I think one of the most interesting things about the district is it's like an onion, and you have to keep peeling it to find out what else and what else and what else we do. The core is about 7 schools, actual brick and mortar schools that we operate. Then at the next level, you'll see the schools, the classrooms in the various schools in the 22 different districts. And then you go out another level, and you will see a SNAP program for students in the parochial schools. And you go out another level, and you will see programs for students who are incarcerated or hospitalized in different settings. And so the complexity of the district is not as well communicated as it should be, but there's a lot to understand about special school district.
I didn't know some of that. And my other question was, I don't know who would know the answer to this, but are North and South Tech used to their capacity?
At capacity, no. North Tech, South Tech has become a part-day program where North Tech is a full-day program because of the South Tech not receiving enough students to support the program. So most of our South Tech students are part-day students. They do part of their classwork in their local high schools, and then they travel to Tech for the rest of their afternoon. But North Tech is a full-day classroom. Students graduate from North Tech. Some students do not graduate from South Tech. They graduate from their local high schools. So, you're welcome.
One other celebration tonight. Last year was a transition year for Dr. Zingring, and in terms of the new arrangement. And I think as the year went on, I saw just more and more awareness on her part of the challenges, but also taking on deeper issues. And to Peg's point, I think I was just really impressed with the discussion you had with the parent advocacy group and others about curriculum, not just structure. We started talking really about how curriculum was being offered and how we needed to really think differently about not segregating discipline or curriculum, but really making it available and not put titles or labels on it. So I'm really excited about the potential now with 1 year under her belt and the structure we're trying to create, and the area coordinators that have really, I think, become more engaged with the system and not really worried about where they were communicating, whether it was SSD or Parkway. I think we've really on the road to a more integrated approach that is really much more meaningful to our families and to our students and to our staff as well. So I think that's a celebration that I think we should not not ignore here. We really have some great potential, and I just think we really are on the road here to really get deeper into some very important issues.
What you said, having watched this over the past 10 years, it's truly now a partnership. It didn't used to be. It was 2 separate entities, but now I really feel we have a partnership with SSD, and it's wonderful for all the kids. It's just wonderful because that's what it's all about. So it's a market change, I think, over the years.
Well, as I gave you the main report and I brought up that terminology, certainly my parochial view as a Parkway former board member, resident, parent, and consumer is that Parkway is probably closest to the finish line of an ideal partnership of any other district in the county. And I guess my only expansion of that thought is if this Leadership Academy gets off the ground, I think we have resident a lot of best practices, and I think we have an obligation to share those with other districts at whatever level of effort we can manage.
I've been actively involved in this conversation since probably the 1980s. So yes, changes have been made, and at one point, all right, Bruce, at one point, Parkway and other districts and special came up with a partnership plan about how this was all supposed to work. And what we found recently basically was that we all missed one step, and that was that superintendents changed, boards changed, leadership changed, and some districts forgot that they had ever participated in a partnership plan or a desire to be partners. I don't think that's true of Parkway. I think Parkway has, and it has to do with the fact that in Parkway, the doors are open for parents to bring the issues to the board, to the decision makers. I think that's a very crucial point. And the Parkway Parents Advisory has been active for many, many years, and the district has worked hard to listen to parents. And I think that's a crucial aspect. So I agree that over time, it's been more of a discussion and less of an argument.
If you feel like you haven't got enough from the PRC report, this is an artifact dated June 2001, the partnership plan that the PRC came across regrettably late in our investigation, and I think if you want to see what the game plan would look like, 80% of it is right here, and as Peg mentioned, regrettably gathered dust on a lot of shelves in a lot of districts. So it was.
I even asked if you guys, well, I guess I don't. I shouldn't answer it. I won't do that. It's a useful thing to go look at some point. Not that you don't have a lot to look at all the time.
Agreements would be coming forth. Is that something that we're talking about weeks and months, or is it going to be next year?
Well, we're about, I'd say halfway through the categories. We're working our way through it. Now, then it'll have to go to certainly other folks to review, but I'm one of, I think, 6 superintendents that are sitting with the leadership of SSD, and it's been very, very good discussion. Some of those documents some of the agreements are very, the language is very, very old and really needs to be looked at. And I think we're really feeling good about the fact we're putting some substance to that's much more current and much more state of the art in terms of what we ought to be talking about in terms of students and relationships.
Well, I think one of the efforts that I was probably most proud of being a member of the Public Review Committee was the work we did in coming up with, here we go. Is that all of them? No, there's more. But wait, there's more. This slide would probably take 20 minutes worth of introduction. I'm not going to inflict that on you now. But if we did get down to the level of thinking about interaction of systems and systemic solutions, and previous PRC reports, if you glance at one, would list the 8 statutory categories as separate topics and address them in series with not a lot of cross-pollination. This was the graphic representation of our systemic thinking in our analysis of the work we did, and how our recommendations came about was thinking systems of systems. And I think Dr. Marty can probably make heads or tails of that with the work he's been doing on the Partnership Plan Task Force. So if you've got the time, sit down with a good cup of coffee or tea some evening and look through the actual body of the PRC report where this is all laid out. It'll about 10 pages worth, but I am exceptionally proud of the work we did on that.
What we're looking at is when I say about old language, we're talking about language that suggests that, SSD is going to do this because statute or something dictates it, versus why don't we just do what's right for kids and talk to one another and talk about it as a true partnership and not rely on statute or old practices. So that's been refreshing, and I think it's going to reap some really fine benefits eventually for all districts.
It's a very self-reflective process. You're self-assessing and looking at the history. Did you guys? Was there any external benchmarks? I mean, was there any systems elsewhere that you guys looked at to compare to, or?
I guess regrettably there are very few equals of SSD throughout the country.
There are some, though.
There are a few, and we did try to get some benchmark data. Not a whole lot that we could readily compare to what we were looking at, but certainly the process itself and the composition of the board, all the 3 DESE appointees were all retired superintendents, and Larry Felton was one of the governing council appointees, and he's a board member from Melville and the upcoming president of the Missouri School Board Association. So certainly his contributions to he's the graphic representation guy, so I got to credit him with that product. But really good interaction and great process. So in the future, if you have the opportunity, I'd highly recommend participation.
Participation is the whole big deal.
All right, Debbie, did you have something?
Thank you all very much. Oh, I'm sorry.
Chris actually asked my question, but just a comment. I read your whole report and I earmarked it. I made lines through it. I highlighted things. So and the whole time I was thinking, oh my gosh, this is a huge amount of work. And so I just thank you as a mother of a student who utilizes SSD services for this to be taken so seriously. I hope it doesn't catch dust and that we continue. And being a part of Project Parkway, one of the things that I'm very proud of with this district is in our mission statement that it's all students and it's underlined. And I think that just goes to show an example of where this district holds their students, that we're taking care of everybody.
Well, it is critically important to all of us, and certainly where my heart is.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Okay, 15.0 work session, there is none. 16.0 call for special meeting, none. 17.0 next scheduled closed session. The next anticipated closed session will be held on September 10th, 2014 at 6 p.m. at Central Middle School. Details of the closed session will be posted within 24 hours of the anticipated meeting. 18.0 recess. May I have a motion and a second to adjourn the regular meeting? Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 7-0. This time we will adjourn. Thank you all for coming.